Now more than ever, it's so trendy to talk about witchcraft online, to talk about magic, and to talk about dragons specifically. And unfortunately, a lot of people are building careers off of scamming people, off of hurting people, off of, you know, creating these illusions and making money off of you. Very predatory in the sense of like how they get into your mind and make you think and believe certain things. And today's video is all about how I survived DragonWitchTok and how I recovered from spiritual psychosis after my encounters over there. So if you're new here, assalamu alaikum, merry meet, and welcome back to your daily dose of DragonFaether. My name is Azura DragonFaether, the Draconic Priestess, and I will be your host for today, and how to navigate DragonWitchTok and how I survived the spiritual psychosis that threatened to take me out, to be honest. First, we're just going to get into a little bit of a disclaimer here. I am in no way like talking about anything other than my personal experience today. This video is purely about how my perspective was in these communities and how they affected my mental health and how ultimately they were so deeply distressing for me on a psychological level that I felt the need to really speak up about how it affected me personally. I won't be going into like too much details about like, you know, the specifics of like what happened to me and stuff like that, but like I am going to give just a basic like toolkit of how to navigate the things that ultimately really affected my mental health. So with the disclaimer out of the way, we're gonna jump right on into the video. So first and foremost, I really started getting super into TikTok in 2020, like most of us did, when it was the height of the pandemic and we really didn't have much else to do besides scroll on our phones, okay? So this is where I first started, you know, my DragonWitchTok journey, if you will. And I personally haven't really, I personally didn't like post too much. I did post one video that was like an achievement unlocked based around being a dragon witch, but like I didn't post anything else really for the longest of times in terms of like dragon content, because I ended up going through so much depression and I was going through like so much like self-hatred and so much like grief from losing loved ones that I didn't really know how to navigate those feelings. And the way that I coped with that mostly was by scrolling on TikTok. And eventually I found, you know, many different types of creators. I might have to get up if the neighbors are noisy, but I ended up encountering a lot of creators who made me really just like want to jump back into content creation for dragon magic. And it was a really initially like magical experience. You know, I've been in this niche for so long, you know, I didn't really like, I've been in this niche for so long that I didn't really have someone to watch. Like I've been the one creating the content, if you will. And so I was like super happy that I finally found like a community that I could watch content and like I could like, you know, learn more from other creators and stuff too. And then slowly over time I just really started getting more involved into these communities. And let me tell you something about short form content. The way that short form content is designed is to really capture your attention. It's to capture your engagement, and they're usually very sensationalized in order to hook the viewer into watching and wanting more. And some people know this consciously and some people just happen upon it, you know, in their content creation career, and then kind of fall down a rabbit hole in creating content that is essentially, you know, a dopamine hack, if that makes sense. So when I was really starting to get more involved in these communities, like I was surprised by how many people knew who I was, and like, you know, that was something that made me want to get involved in like even more, since I had been gone from my YouTube channel for so many years, you know what I mean? I'd been gone from my YouTube channel for like 3 years at this point, and so I wanted to get back into the community and get involved however I can and learn how it grew and how it changed. And initially that kind of made me like, you know, lower my guard in the sense of like, oh, like there's so many more people like me, like I want to get to know you guys, like I want to be friends with you, like I want to like let's be like BFFs, you know, like dragon besties. And while that was like coming from like a really like innocent part of my heart and a very like innocent part of my, you know, perspective and desires, like ultimately it made me, ultimately it made me kind of foolish, because I wasn't really paying attention to things that would be considered like red flags, or things that concerned me, or things that like would concern most people, right? So eventually, when I was really into these communities, that's when my personal like security within my own path started to get wonky, because I was being so exposed to people's like constant opinions and the trends of TikTok. Oh, excuse my neighbor, please. And the like constant trends of TikTok and the, you know, fast-paced algorithm, and how the For You page changes so quickly, and how new ideas spread so fast, and all of this, it really kind of made me start to question like do I even know what I'm talking about? And like being around people who wanted to essentially subscribe to this certain type of view, not only within like dragon mythology, but just like within witchcraft in general, and like subscribing to this like particular notion of how and who to be, especially within like a collective setting. I ran into a lot of instances that were like glorification of the creators themselves. And a lot of these communities were like treating the creators that they supported almost like their own version of like, I don't want to say messiah, but like savior. Like they were like held up as their savior, as like in a way, and like I felt like I had to be like part of that too, and I had to like engage in that too. And then slowly over time, this really only all it did was make me feel so anxious and so unsure of my own abilities. And then I started, you know, having people in my DMs like talking about how like, oh, how does it feel to have like, you know, like somebody who knows like your goddess as well as you do like talking to you. And it slowly got really weird really fast. And then it started leading into a sense of like questioning what I was working with, and people starting to, you know, get more open with me and share their perspectives of like their spiritual experiences. And everybody's entitled to their own spiritual experiences, but you have to understand that when you share your spiritual experiences, other people are entitled to block you, okay? Like other people are entitled to be like, that's weird, I don't want to be around that, I'm gonna dip. And you know, I was mostly getting involved in these communities because I was researching you know, dragon deities, and like in particular right around the time of my video series called The First Sex by Elizabeth Gold Davis. We did like a live read through of that series. If you're interested, it'll be linked in the cards for you. But I was really just trying to learn more about these deities and dragon gods and goddesses that were mentioned within this book, and this is kind of like how it led me to DragonWitchTok. You know, a lot of the information that I was seeking just didn't really exist online, except on WitchTok, on DragonWitchTok, and that is where I really fell down deep into that part of the community. And these, you know, sensationalized ideals of deities, and people starting to personify deities in the sense of like giving them personalities when they historically had none. There was so much cultural appropriation. I started to question what was actually authentic, what was actually like Dungeons and Dragons, and it led me to where I had to essentially cut myself off from like every other part of this community, and just like really sit in like isolation for a while, and just like ask myself like, okay, who am I? How do I identify? And like, where am I going? And like, what am I doing? Like, what do I believe? And like, I've been practicing for so many years, and I've never had anything like this like make me question who I am as a practitioner than I ever have with like the TikTok environment. And I know I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that like just lose their mental health so fast, and like the whole part that really messed with my head was the past life stuff. And I think that, you know, this might be a hot take, but in terms of people who believe in past lives, and people who do like past life regression, and people who do past life readings, and people who think that they have had past lives, especially in like a mythological context, like a Sumerian past life, or like, you know, past life as like a dragon deity, and like, you know, that's where it started to get really, really scary, because like I didn't know what was real life anymore, and I didn't know what was like history versus like personal gnosis. And the scariest part is that it's not just like one or two people who might believe these things. It's like full-on communities that believe these things, and like full-on communities that perpetuate these ideals. And it's like so much like petty, like, if you don't follow us type of vibe, like, we're gonna demonize you, is essentially like the energy that I got. And it really made me concerned, because like I have really like a really like nuanced and like really unique random take for what past lives are, and I'll definitely go into it in another video. But like essentially, like TLDR, like the way that I view past lives as a practitioner is through like genealogy. So like I see my mom as my past life, I see my grandma as my past life, and I see myself as their future life, because of just like genetically speaking, you know, we're very similar. And like our lives, we inherit a lot of our behaviors and a lot of our ideals and a lot of our belief systems from our parents. So that is just like my personal take on past lives. But some people just have like the most grandiose way of explaining their past lives, and it makes it to where they don't even want to be alive in this current reality. And that's really the part that started to make me slip into psychosis, was that all of these like people explaining their past lives to me, or explaining their personal gnosis, believing that they're like, you know, dragon gods incarnated into like human bodies, or they're like avatars for certain dragon gods, or they like are descendants of like dragon gods, or they're the firstborn son of dragon gods, or they, you know, fight astral enemies with dragon gods. Like I have never been so ashamed of loving dragons in my whole life when I was in these environments. And the second that I stepped away from them and really started to assess like where I was and how I was feeling, and like what I wanted to be, and like who I wanted to be, and like what I wanted to practice and follow, and like doing my own research and not just getting information from creators and like community members and stuff like that, but like actually starting to do a more thorough deep dive into, you know, the ancient practices that I wanted to learn about, you know, now that I was exposed to them in that book that I read, you know, The First Sex by Elizabeth Gould Davis. And the best thing that I ever did for recovering from that spiritual psychosis is genuinely putting my phone down and removing myself from that community. You guys need to get used to using the block button. It is okay to block people. It's okay to delete things that scare you. It's okay to run away if that is what your gut is telling you. If you don't want to be around certain communities, if you don't want to be around certain individuals, like I know people are like, oh, don't ghost people, like blah blah blah. It's like at the end of the day, like your mental health is the most important thing in this life, because if you don't have solid mental health, like your life is in danger. And I know that people might genuinely think that's extreme to say, but it's so true. And I've seen so many people just lose their minds, and I've actually had friends, like both online and offline, just completely lose the plot because of whatever they believe that they are, whatever they believe that they're doing. And ultimately, I really caution against personifying your deities with like full-blown personalities, in the sense of like, you know, like, oh, like Hecate said this to me and she's like really disappointed, but like Hecate, you know, she's mom, right? So like I gotta listen to my mom when she scolds me. Like I get you. Like I understand that many of us have like relationships with deities that genuinely really keep us grounded and really fill gaps in our personal experience that we need to like have, like our roles in our personal life that we need to have and we need to embrace. But I'm just saying, like, it's also a double-edged sword, and to just be careful when you do engage in stuff like that, because it can go really bad really fast if you don't have some sort of anchor to reality. Okay, and I didn't have an anchor to reality, and like at first, until I found Islam, to be completely honest with you, because like I've been on like DragonWitchTok for, you know, many years, since like 2020, but I haven't been like posting to it, like, or involved in the community, like just like consuming content casually for the most part, until like really last year. I would say maybe a little bit in 2023, but mostly like last year is when I really jumped into the actual content creation and getting involved in the communities and like all of that. And at the end of the day, like the one thing that made me feel like sane again, the one thing that made me feel happy again, the one thing that made me feel like myself, was completely removing myself from these TikTok environments, was completely removing myself from these creators communities, was completely, you know, blocking the people who really just scared me and really threatened my mental health and really made me uncomfortable and really overstepped my boundaries, and also didn't do their due diligence and not spreading misinformation, and didn't do their due diligence and keeping their community safe from predatory people. And that's another thing that was really scary, is that like the deeper you go into a lot of these TikTok communities, especially DragonWitchTok, there's a lot of predatory people out there who are trying to take advantage of people and trying to feel powerful and important and better than you because they work with dragons and you don't. And it's very, very scary in the sense of like, if you trust someone enough, they can really mess with your perception of reality. They can really mess with your, you know, trust within your own intuition, and they can really mess with your spiritual connections. They really can, and it happens all the time, every day on TikTok. And it's just not only on TikTok, it's everywhere, but it's just really exacerbated by TikTok environment. And, you know, I personally, after my experience on DragonWitchTok, I just think that there's a lot of things like past life readings that are unethical. I think that dragon connection readings are unethical in the way that they're usually sold, as in, I'll connect you to a dragon for you. No, the reason why we work with dragons as dragon witches is to make that connection ourselves, and I'll die on that hill if I have to. No one can connect you to a dragon for you. I know, surprise. But also when people were like trying to see if they were dragon souls or dragonkin readings, like, I also think those are unethical, and staying away from those things has extremely improved my mental health. And unless like the creator is giving you like disclaimers and like telling you in very, very meticulous detail about how their readings work and why they charge what they charge, it is a hustle, okay? Like, and everybody's trying to make money and trying to make ends meet and trying to pay their rent and trying to feed their families and keep a roof over their head. And like, look, no shade for that hustle, but like, at what cost, right? Like, at what cost are you gonna start like making content that hurts people, and like then you're gonna just feel like you're fine and wash your hands clean of it? Like, that's not how it works. A lot of people are so fucked up from being on TikTok, and like, I just am one of them, and I almost lost my mind to it, and I really didn't recover until I started practicing Islam. And I'm not saying you have to practice Islam in order to recover from something like that. It's just, you need to find something that's like a discipline, something that's a daily practice for you, something that has like maybe even lineage or ancient history attached to it, or like a collective practice attached to it that you can really tune into to help you ground, okay? And also putting my phone away and coming outside like I am right now. Like, I'm in my front yard, right? And like, when, you know, coming outside and like what I'm doing right now, here, I'll show you, like on the ground, like I'm just like doing this like to the grass on the ground, and like this like really is like a texture thing, and maybe it's just my autism, but like, I love feeling the texture of nature and feeling the texture of being outside, and like what the breeze feels like on my face. And like, it's so important to not lose that connection, which kind of brings me to my conclusion of this video today, which is all of these people who are positioning themselves to be holier than thou and like really like just better than you and like further ahead than you in your life, and like, you know, doing things in their practice that you could only dream of. Like, they're not better than you. They never were better than you, and you don't have to worship these people. Like, you don't have to look up to these people. You don't have to give them any sort of authority in your life. And I never will ever let anyone else have a say in my spiritual practice now because of what I went through on TikTok. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, let me know politely, but there's no need to hate on me. There's no need to insult people if you think they're wrong. There's no need to belittle people or make fun of them. That is just incredibly immature and petty. And for me personally, where I'm at now, like, I just don't believe in past lives anymore, and that is personally for my own mental health. And I'm not saying that you can't believe in past lives or whatever. I know it's a huge thing for a lot of people, but you have to understand that where I'm coming from is from like a spiritual psychosis position, where like I started getting into like the dragon past life things, or the dragon past life kind of thing, and it it really shook me in such a way that I'm still recovering to this day from it, and like still like calling hotlines and seeking therapy for certain things, because it's genuinely just that hard and that difficult and that like so just dark and scary and confusing. There's no like right or wrong way. It's pretty much people just making up things as they go along, and like that is genuinely what past lives are. They're like people and places that you feel like you've been with or been to and you resonate with, and some people really do identify with their past lives more than their current ones, and the second that that happens, that is not ever what like past lives are supposed to do for you. Like past lives are supposed to give you context to how you live and improve your life in this lifetime, okay? In the sense of like, if you believe you've had past lives, right? Like me personally, I don't anymore for my mental health, but like for the people who do, this is what I tell them. I'm like, with your past lives, if you exploring your past lives and doing past life regressions and past life readings becomes so much of an obsession for you that you can't even live your current lifestyle, you need to take a step back. Like that is really scary and really a bad precursor. And it's a really bad precursor to a lot of scary mental health issues, is what I was trying to say before my camera storage ran out. But all I was trying to say for today's video is, 1, be careful when you're consuming content online. 2, do not let people have any authority over your perception of your spirit team or you as an individual, or any sort of influence on your faith, because when you give that power to them, remember that these people have power over your identity and your life experience and your spiritual practice. And 3rd, please do not forget to touch grass, okay? In the sense that like, just put your phone down, okay? Like you don't have to scroll for so long. Like so many of these people, all they do are chronically online, and they completely lose the entire point of our practice, which is to be connected with nature, to be connected with the natural cycles of the like universe and of like, you know, nature and our planets and the solar cycles and the lunar cycles and the seasonal cycles. Like, please make sure that you prioritize your connection with nature, okay? And lastly, I'm just going to remind you guys that whenever you're engaging in communities, remember to question everything that you hear and do your own research, and do not take what some people say as fact, including myself, because this is your life at the end of the day. This is your life, okay, my loves? Like, it doesn't matter who says what, even me, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody is more important than you in your life. Like, and I will die on this hill. You are the main character in your own life, and I'm gonna need you to start acting like it, in the sense that, no, you're not gonna give other people like power and authority over you. Like, no, you're not gonna allow people to define your connections to the spirit world. We're done with that in 2025, okay? Like, we're not going to fall down a rabbit hole of sensationalized content into feeling like we're chosen ones, that we're on this huge mission to fix the earth, that we're this, that, and the other. And look, all of us are going through a really hard time on this planet right now, and I just need you guys to remember like what's actually important. And what's important is being alive right here, right now. What's important is being embodied in your current life right here, right now. What's important is doing what you can to help your community. What's important is not spreading misinformation. What's important is calling out predatory behavior when we witness it and removing it from our spaces. What is like the most important takeaway from this video for anyone to like, if anyone's watching out there, like, please just remember that like this is your journey, okay? And like, I don't want you to get into a place that I was in, where I felt like I had to listen to what these people had to say, and I wasn't a good enough practitioner if I didn't. So this is just my story, and if you guys have questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you have your own horror stories of being on TikTok or DragonWitchTok or just any sort of spiritual content or religious content in general, please let me know in the comments down below, and let's start a conversation about how we can navigate this. What are the red flags? How can we avoid certain things? And what are your best tools to staying safe online? So thank you guys listening to my journey about how I survived DragonWitchTok and how I recovered from spiritual psychosis. It was a very scary time, but I am still doing some recovery, that's true, but for the most part, I'm out of the darkest, the hardest, and the heaviest parts of it, and I just really wanted to be vocal about that here on my channel for the Storytime week. And if you missed yesterday's episode, you will definitely want to check it out, because I did a Storytime about how you need to touch grass in order to connect with your dragon spirit guides, because ultimately the fundamental point of our practice is to be in touch with the land and the natural cycles of this world and reality. So thank you guys so much for spending some of your time with me today. This was a really really, like, I had a lot of anxiety telling the story, but I feel so much better now that it's finished, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And I will definitely hang out with you guys in the Hatchling Clan Discord server if you haven't joined us already. If you want to learn more about, you know, safety tips for being online, or more about dragon magic, or just more about religions of the world, definitely click the first link in the description down below. It's a free community for you to enjoy, and we're so excited to meet you over there, and I'm there every day. I just love hanging out with you guys in the Hatchling Clan, so I'll see you there. But until next time, stay geeky, chicken, epic! Little hatchlings. Ding! I don't know what that was, but thank you so much for tuning in. Gadafis, blessed be. Amin.